Hey guys, what's up? And today, finally, I'm gonna be talking about Twin Peaks: The Return, Season 3. It's been 26 years since Twin Peaks Season 2 had ended, and yeah, that's a very long time. So if you don't know what Twin Peaks is, it is a classic TV show written and directed by Mark Frost and legendary director and writer David Lynch, who's always well known for his weird, artsy abstractness. Twin Peaks had always been one of his most iconic works, and Twin Peaks seasons 1 and 2 take place in 1990 and 1991, being really funny, scary, and weird at the very same time. And it sort of focuses on Laura Palmer's death, her murder, how this evil entity called Bob would possess a person and try to kill Laura Palmer because Laura Palmer has good positive energy in her, so they must kill her because Bob is evil. Yeah. Sit down, eat some popcorn, cause I'm gonna talk about the details. So finally, 26 years later, it's the third season had finally arrived, and unfortunately a few actors had already passed away, including David Bowie, who had played Philip Jeffries in the Fire Walk With Me movie. And also, what's really impressive is that at the end of season 2, Laura Palmer in the White Lodge told Cooper that she's gonna see him 25 years later. And now, 26 years later, we have Twin Peaks. Also, the White Lodge is basically like the good place, and the Black Lodge is the bad place. So yeah, if you haven't watched Twin Peaks 1 and 2, you should go watch it. But if you haven't, and you're watching this review, you'll probably not understand everything I say. Anyway, we have part 1. Also, all of the parts are titled parts 1 to 18. They do not have a title. They kind of do, but it's not really their title. So I'm gonna give them my own title. Anyway, the part 1, I would like to call it The Glass Box, part 1. So, wow. If you go into Twin Peaks The Return thinking that it's gonna resolve the cliffhangers, how about, who's that person? Leo, tied up to the door. How about Audrey in that bank with the explosion? How about Cooper hitting his head into the mirror and asking, "How's Annie?" None of the cliffhangers will be resolved. Also, in Twin Peaks Season 1 and 2, all of the single episodes take place in Twin Peaks, Washington. And in Twin Peaks The Return, not only is it darker, moodier, spacier, and weirder, most of the scenes do not take place in Twin Peaks. They take place in Las Vegas, South Dakota, New York sometimes as well. Anyway, we arrived at the first scene. Black and white. The good Cooper is still stuck at the White Lodge, while the evil Cooper is still out there. And he and the fireman, who's this giant, had a conversation. And, the fireman speaks in reverse. More like he speaks in reverse while acting, and when they edit the thing, they put it in reverse again, so it's normal, but not. So yeah, 4:30, Richard and Linda. A lot of weird extraneous information thrown at your face at the very beginning. And then we have scene 2, which totally feels out of place and irrelevant. Basically, we get a small glimpse into Twin Peaks, and we see Dr. Jacoby buying some shovels. There's no climax to this scene. There's no build-up. There's nothing there, really. And then we have the third scene, which is even more head-scratching. This a really straight up man just sits in a large room in New York watching a glass box and not doing anything. And it's spacey, almost irritatingly slow. And then we have the fourth scene. Finally back in Twin Peaks, we have Ben Horne still working in the Great Northern Hotel in his office. We have this new secretary woman called Beverly, and Jerry, his brother, he's still there. And he's still kind of crazy, but Ben is a good guy now. And then we have the fifth scene where we are introduced, or more like reintroduced, to evil Cooper, who has long hair and who is emotionless and doesn't blink his eye much. So off to a very abstract and scant start. And it's just the beginning. It's gonna get weirder and slower very soon. And then not too long after, the man in the glass box room died. He actually died. This weird smoky figure appeared in the glass box finally, and that figure attacked him and his girlfriend, and their heads blew up and they died. So yeah, not only is Twin Peaks: The Return weirder and darker, it's also more adult. More nudity, actually nudity is featured, more blood, more gore, more violence, and people actually swearing a lot, dropping the F-bomb a lot. And then we move on to the other storyline happening in Buckhorn, South Dakota. In this hotel room, there's this weird smell coming out. A lady in the next room reported it to the cops. The cops came and found out that the smell came from a corpse. More like two corpses, but reassembled into one corpse, someone's body and someone's head. And later it's found out that the body belongs to Major Garland Briggs, who had disappeared. Garland Briggs is the father of Bobby, who now actually works at the sheriff's station, which is actually fantastic because in the original Twin Peaks, Bobby is this irresponsible punk boy, but now he's a really good man, also a good father. And then we have Matthew Lillard, who's well known for playing Shaggy, the very powerful Shaggy, and now is the suspected killer of Ruth Davenport, who is whose head is a part of that corpse. And yeah, I know. And then we also get Hawk and Log Lady on the phone, and Log Lady was clearly not in a great shape in that episode. Rest in peace. And then continuously we move on to part 2, and it's even spacier, moodier, and weirder and harder to predict than part 1. We get Cooper still in the White Lodge, more like the waiting room. It's a little different. So Cooper was in the White Lodge, and he and Mike, the one-armed man, the good guy, had talked. And Mike said, "Is it the future or is it past?" And then weird stuff started happening. He glitched out of existence. Old Laura Palmer came out of nowhere saying that she's dead, but yes, she lives, which actually hints at the multiverse, more like the multi-dimension theory that will come to full circle at the end of this season. And then she became this weird object that floated into the sky and fizzed into the background. And yeah, and then Cooper walked away and saw the evil version of the arm. The arm being this ball of moving slime on top of a tree trunk that moves and causes lightning. And then there's the good version of that arm, and then there's also the bad version. So he saw the bad version, and the bad version sent him down and tried to bring him back to Earth, which is really important. I've been waiting to see that for a very long time now. So Cooper fell into the void, into the abyss, and he was in midair, and then he suddenly glitched into New York, into the glass box earlier. And for some reason, when he glitched in there, the man and his girlfriend was still alive, so he was there before the evil entity had arrived. And then we also get James and Freddy arriving at the Roadhouse bar. Fun fact, Freddy is actually being played by that English accent guy on YouTube. Check him out. He does really good English accents. He does like 24 of them in one video or something. And Shelly, who's played by Machin Almick, is also in that scene. She didn't say anything important though, so it feels kind of extraneous. And this episode sort of ends off with a performance at the Roadhouse bar. Similarly, for the rest of the season, pretty much every episode ends with a 3-minute long musical performance. It's almost like David Lynch had created a new format for a new kind of artsy television. Anyway, we have the third part, and I would like to call it the purple, and oh my gosh, it's even weirder. Originally, I wrote the script for this review, but of course, technology hates me, so it's still there, it still exists, except I can't access it because the monitor of my phone is dead. So I have to rewrite the whole thing. It's not really the script, just a quick summary of what had happened on part 3. Anyway, Cooper, he glitched back out from the glass box. Before he glitched back out, he was sort of, shrinking and enlarging and shrinking and enlarging and glitching around in this glass box, and then he went back out again. And then he fell into this fort, this metallic stone fort, I think, and it's all purple, and it faces a purple sea that reaches beyond the horizon. And then he makes a turn and goes into the fort, and it's this really small room for some reason. This really small, cozy room with a couch in the middle. On the couch is a woman with her eyes being patched up, and there are still scars. So she was an eyeless woman, and she barks. She doesn't speak. She kind of barks like a dog, except not really, more humanly. And she barks in reverse. And when Cooper entered that room, everything glitched back and forth like a millisecond before and a millisecond after, so everything's sort of chopped up, and it's the trippiest thing I've ever seen on TV history. And then after a while, there's this banging on some door, and it was just really ominous and loud. And then beside that door, opposite side of the room, there's this giant wall socket thing, like a machine on the wall, and it says 15. Cooper wants to touch it, but the eyeless woman stopped him. Instead, they went up to the room, and it's just this really mind-bending spatial error where when they went up, they were actually on top of a really small cuboid, like a satellite in the middle of the abyss, the void. And then the banging stopped, and the eyeless woman flipped a giant switch off of this bell, and then she jumped off, and she disappeared. And then suddenly this cloud, this giant cloud with the face of Garland Briggs, glided across, saying "Blue Rose," and then disappeared. And then Cooper went back down, and it wasn't purple anymore. An older version of Ronnie showed up, looked at him, didn't say anything, I think. And then Cooper went to that wall machine again. It says 3 now. And he went through that wall socket and disappeared, except for his pair of shoes, which got cut off and left behind. So yeah, it was both very frustrating, but also very entertaining and interesting. I have no idea what's happening. And then at the same time, the evil Cooper threw up, and it's so disgusting. My theory for this is that Cooper, the good Cooper, is trying to go back to the real world, while the evil Coop is trying so hard to not go back to the Black Lodge. And he kind of succeeded. He didn't go back in. So now there are 2 Coopers in the real world. And then we are introduced to Dougie, who's this short-haired, innocent, idiotic, moronic version of Cooper. Apparently he's a duplicate. He's a fake. And he was having an affair with this girl. That sounds weird. With this woman. And then all of a sudden, he threw up and disappeared, and the good Cooper finally showed up. Except he's retarded now, because he's incomplete, because the shoes are still in that satellite. So he's now dumb, and he doesn't know how to speak, doesn't know how to walk, doesn't know how to do everything. So he's still stuck there. Yeah. And then Dougie got transported back to the White Lodge. He sat on a chair. He started to he's like a balloon deflating, and then suddenly his head blew up and become a bunch of black smoke, and this small golden sphere just floated out. And apparently Dougie also has his own wife and son. That is Jenny E, played by Naomi Watts, and Sonny Jim. Really weird names. Anyway, and then we go back to Twin Peaks in the sheriff's station, where Hawk and Andy and Lucy had a conversation. The lock lady told Hawk that something's missing, and it's something related to his heritage. And Hawk looked at everything he got, and he's like, something's missing. And Andy was like, oh, it's the chocolate gummy bear. And Hawk was like, no, it's not about the chocolate gummy bear. And Andy was like, okay, it's not about the chocolate gummy bear. It makes no sense. How does a chocolate gummy bear even make sense anyway? Whatever. And then Hawk even said something very philosophical, I think. If something is not missing, then I can probably find it. I don't know. And then later on, we see Gordon Cole returning. He is played by David Lynch. We also have Albert, his sidekick, who's very mean in the original Twin Peaks, but now better, nicer, I guess. Rest in peace as well. And we also have Tammy, who's this young, prettier FBI agent. And these 3, they are on this mission to find, this weird thing as well. And they learned about the glass box murders, and Gordon Cole was like, what the hell? And there we go. He said it for us. The writer himself said that. And then at the very end, Dougie, but with the subconsciousness of the good Cooper, went into the casino, and he started seeing these weird floating images on top of these casino machines. I don't know how to say that. And he went there and hit a jackpot, and then he sees another floating thing, and he went to that particular machine and, played and had a jackpot again, and again, and again, and again. And every time he does that, every time he hits a jackpot, he says, hello, hello. And it's funny. And then he also helped out this homeless old woman. So at this point, I was entertained because I didn't know what the hell was going on, but at the same time, I was a little bit frustrated because I kind of didn't know where the show is going, the direction the show is going. Anyway, part 4, I would like to call it Tricked. Dougie is still in the casino, got a lot of money, and Gordon Cole is off to investigate the glass box murders. And before Gordon Cole set off, Gordon Cole actually met Denise, who's played by David Duchovny, but pretending to be a woman. And Denise is now apparently the chief of FBI or something, like the most powerful one, which is just bollocks. Yeah. And we also get Frank Truman in the sheriff's station. The actor for Harry Truman didn't want to return to Twin Peaks: The Return, so we have his fictional brother replacing him. A pretty smart move on David Lynch's hands, to be honest. And also, Lucy has this thing against cell phones. And of course, Andy and Lucy, they are, they have grown up a lot already. So they actually got married and had a son. And guess who is playing the son? Michael Cera. Yeah, Michael Cera had a cameo, and it was so awkward and uncomfortable, but in an oddly funny way. I'm sorry I had to turn on the air conditioning. It's so hot in here. Anyway, after Mr. C, aka the evil Cooper, threw up in that car, he was in a coma, and he was taken to the nearby police station, where Gordon Cole and Albert and Tammy visited, and they actually met face to face. And Gordon Cole already immediately knew that something's wrong. He's not really Cooper. So a bit of suspense there that I really enjoyed. Anyway, we move on to part 5. Who should I call? And Amanda Seyfried is actually in the show, but she doesn't play any major character or whatever. She plays the daughter of Shelley and Bobby. And a slice of Lynch. And she and that guy from Get Out, also from 3 Billboards, that guy Caleb something, are basically lovers, a pair of lovers in the story, except that guy, I forgot the name, sorry, except that guy is a crackhead. He sucks at interviews, he doesn't have a job, and he's a total dick. He's violent, he's psychotic, and he's also driving Amanda Seyfried's character crazy also. Anyway, Dougie goes to work. I had been waiting for a very, very, very long time for Dougie to finally wake up to become the good Cooper, but for a very, very large majority of the show, of the season, the good Cooper doesn't wake up. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Anyway, Dougie goes to work, and of course it's really awkward. He doesn't know how to walk, how to talk. He fails at everything. He only knows how to drink coffee. There's also this really weird extraneous scene, not a storyline, just a couple of scenes. One of Dougie's neighbors is actually a crackhead mom yelling out 119, 119 all the time, and her very poor son. And they witnessed someone blow up Dougie's car. Apparently there are a lot of people trying to kill Dougie for some reason, maybe because Dougie owes them money, or maybe Dougie had dabbled into some sort of crimes, I don't know. Anyway, Dr. Jacoby, after buying and painting some shovels, he had his own radio talk show where he just rants angrily non-stop about the government, about corporation, about authority. And that's kind of weird considering that that's not very Dr. Jacoby to do. Also, Jerry and Nadine watch his radio show as well. Not really radio show then, if he watches it, more like an internet thing, which is pretty amazing. How Mark Frost and David Lynch used technology in the story. Anyway, we are also introduced to Richard Horne, who is the son of Audrey Horne, and his all his scenes at the beginning of the show feel really out of place because he never really does anything important to the central theme. Actually, there isn't really a central theme tying all of these extraneous scenes together. Anyway, Evil Coop is in prison, and he started acting weird, and he looked at the CCTV saying, asking if he could call someone, and then when he's calling someone, the entire prison just went crazy, and lights were blinking, classic David Lynch, and he said, "The cow jumped over the moon." On part 6, which I'd like to call Sparkle, we see more of Richard Horne. Richard Horne met this gangster head who deals a drug called Sparkle. It kicks really hard. It's tight. But he also knows magic, so he did this really crazy, weird coin magic in front of Richard Horne, and Richard was like, "Fuck this, I'm out." So he stormed out on his truck, and he accidentally hit this kid. And the mom of this kid cried. This kid actually died. It was bloody, it was sad, it was violent. And there's this old man who lives next to Amanda Seyfried's character's boyfriend, and he saw the kid's soul levitating into the sky as one of those things that we've seen earlier on top of the casino machines. So I guess the soul is going to the White Lodge. We also get a character named Todd who had been planning to assassinate Dougie or Evil Coop for a very long time. And Todd is actually played by the same guy who played Jimmy Barrett in Mad Men Season 2. Anyway, we also get a scene where Jenny E., played by Naomi Watts, yelled at the people whom Dougie owes money to. And that's a funny scene too, I guess. And we also get Hawk finally finding out what's been missing. Of course, Laura's diary's missing pages, and it's inside the bathroom stall door in the sheriff's station in Twin Peaks. I know, it's crazy, but yeah. Anyway, Todd ordered this crazy psycho killer midget who's crazy to assassinate people, to kill off people in Dougie's company, the Lucky 7 Insurance, and it was just this really random hyper scene that feels so out of place and unnecessary. Also at the end, I think Sharon Van Etten performed, so that's a cool thing. Anyway, part 7, not much had happened. There's a scene where Frank and Dr. Hayward actually Skyped each other, and again, I just have to say that, but the way Mark Frost and David Lynch use technology in the story, in the show, is actually really brilliant, because when you look at shows like The X-Files, it's still very clumsy when handling technology, being like, whoa, now we have computers that are flat, and, you know, we have smartphones now, whoa, but now times had moved on in Twin Peaks, everyone had moved on, and everybody just uses those technology like they would be in real life. So yeah, anyway, Diane showed up, and she is played by Laura Dern, frequent collaborator with David Lynch. Anyway, Laura Dern with this really ugly ass wig plays Diane. Apparently she's a real person. She's not an imaginary person in a voice recorder. She's real, and she knows Albert, and Diane saw Evil Coop, and Diane also had a bad feeling about Evil Coop. Maybe he's not really the good Cooper. The crazy psycho midget wanted to assassinate Dougie, and Dougie just single-handedly destroyed him. And that's one really weird moment. Like, maybe the White Lodge is secretly helping Dougie, but then not entirely, because Dougie is still mentally not so complete. Anyway, there's this also really extraneous and weird scene in the Great Northern office, in Ben's office, where there's this really strange humming sound, and Ben and Beverly kept on looking for the source of the humming sound. And then we move on to part 8, and fuck